Okay, let's go ahead and get the meeting started. If you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Shirley, can we get a roll call, Shirley?
I have to take a roll call. Everybody just present. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, the consent agenda is the next item from July 19th. Have any comments or issues? Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to pass consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item is new business. This is Stallings Ranch Villas rezoning from R1 to RP1. It's a public hearing, David, with the concept plan preliminary plat amendment public hearing.
Yeah, I've kind of grouped two applications together at the same time. One is a rezoning from R1 to RP1 for the northeast corner of the Stallings Ranch property. It was the area that was marked as reserved parcel June. I think it was June when it was here before you, just a few months ago. Hopefully I can say this, but that was a property that there was consideration for being a potential school site, an elementary school or some kind of a school site. So that's not happening. So they're proposing to subdivide that into additional single-family residential lots. The area is proposed to be a maintenance-free area with the yard areas to be maintained by a homeowners association. There are some lot widths that don't meet our minimum 75-foot wide lots. They're proposing lots that would be 70 feet wide. Those lots are, though, a little deeper than our standard 110 feet, so the overall lot size meets our minimum requirements. It's just that the lots are a little narrower than our minimum requirements. There are also a few lots on the corners that are proposing a 15-foot front yard setback along the side street, not the front, but the side street, the side yard that faces a street. The 16-acre area, as I'd mentioned, was rezoned earlier this year as part of that reserved parcel. Accompanying the rezoning is an amendment to the preliminary plat to reflect proposed rezoning and to add 5 more lots along the south side of the entrance drive. Those are in the vicinity of the neighborhood pool area on Tract A. I think it's called Tract A in that first phase. Let me get to that. A couple of you looked up at me, so I thought maybe we could pull up the map of that area that's in your agenda packet. So what you see on the screen, outlined in red, would be the RP1 rezoning area. And then on the south side of the entrance drive, these 5 lots would be new lots on phase 1, the Tract A. Just off of the screen where the sidewalk connection goes to the south is where they have the community building and the pool area. The detention on Tract A shrinks a little bit, but they've added a detention area on Tract G in the villas, which kind of offsets some of that. City engineer didn't require that they submit a new drainage study because as each phase comes through, there'll be additional detention engineering that will be done. And they thought it was sufficient to just handle at the final plat stage. Updates to the traffic report were also not requested because they had considered in the original that there might be a school on that reserved tract. So there was traffic that was anticipated as part of that. And so no changes. There's no change to the road network where it connects to Nation Road or 144th Street. So there was no need to update the traffic report for that. Staff recommends approval of the proposed rezoning to RP1, low density residential plan district with concept plan for that villas area with following conditions. 1, that the RP1 plan is approved as presented with the following: A, minimum 70-foot wide lots, and B, 15-foot setbacks were shown on that plan on those corner lots. 2, develop the site per the preliminary plat that's approved by the P&Z. And 3, develop the project in compliance with all city codes, conditions, requirements, plans, and payment of fees and taxes. And then as a second part, so it would be a second motion, staff also recommends approval of the Stallings Ranch Phase 1 preliminary plat amendment with the following conditions, which simply match the original recommendations back in June when it was originally approved. 1, additional revisions if required by planning and zoning. 2, provide adequate stormwater detention. 3, provide adequate water service and fire flow. 4, provide adequate sanitary sewer service. 5, submit final plats and commercial site plans for review and approval prior to public improvements and building construction. And 6, develop the project in compliance with all city codes, conditions, requirements, plans, and payment of fees and taxes. On the rezoning request, there's a public hearing, so you want to open the floor
Sure.
for that. And then the Board of Aldermen will consider the rezoning application at the meeting next Monday. It's been scheduled for that. The preliminary plat amendment, preliminary plats only go to the Planning Zoning Commission, so that won't be forwarded, but they'll see the information anyway as part of the rezoning packet. In the audience, we've got Ron Calgar here, and then we've got Robert De La Fuente, who represents Star Positions as well.
Okay, thank you, David. We'll open up the floor for public hearing. If anyone has anything Ron, floor is yours.
Good evening, Ron Calgar, AGC Engineers, 405 South Leonard, Liberty, Missouri, here on behalf of Star Acquisitions tonight. Happy to answer any questions, David. David's information is factual. The only addition that I would have is it was a +5, but we took 2 lots out of the north side of Park, so the net was only 3. But I like, for Robert and Tim, it's good to think that I found them 5 lots, but I only found them 3. So happy to answer any questions that you may have about this, but don't have a big presentation for you tonight.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
Let's look online real quick. Sorry, I
Yeah.
moved the screen a little big. Yeah, we just got Ryan, who's with staff, so there's no one extra online.
Okay. All right, so we'll close the public hearing at this point. Do we have any board questions?
I'll start. Don't we on these plan things, don't we usually have as-bills?
We'll go through final plat process, and that's when engineering plans will come up. So this is more the proposed layout.
Okay.
The language concept plan, is that what you may be
Well,
referring to?
it seemed like to me that we passed something here about a year or so ago, that we had to have all these as-bills done on these plan things. Am I imagining that, or?
No, as-bills come in after at the final plat stage, so they'll come in with the final plat, build the improvements, and then they'll come back and provide as-built plans as-built drawings for the improvements.
And in tract A, that's where your pool's gonna be?
That's right.
Yeah.
We've got another sheet that. There you go, Kent, there's up on the screen, Kent. So this is the area of the rezoning.
Right.
These are the 5 extra lots on the south side. Here's that sidewalk connection, so there's the pool area and the community building.
So that's the only pool area. What's the rest, what are you using the rest of tract A for?
Tract A will just be an open space. Like David said, where the hand is will be a detention basin. The reason that was able, the reason we were able to get those additional lots in there was we provided detention north of Park Avenue in what then became tract G.
Okay.
It's kind of odd numbering scheme, but it made sense because the drainage study referred to all the original tracks. So we basically started over again on the top.
Okay. What became of the, in the original passage of this, my concerns were for Nation Road. And you couldn't give me an answer or anything about what was going to be, who was going to build that, how it was going to get built, because it obviously is going to have to go to, that road's got to get improved, even if it stays 2 lanes.
Right. The same as the last time, we're going through a transportation master planning process right now. with the city engineers, and so there'll be some recommendations that will come out of that on what gets done with Nation Road and how that's paid for.
Isn't that usually done before we do all this stuff? I mean, it's been in my experience. I mean, I know, we had to put the turn lanes in before we could ever build a house. So,
As part of their plan, they do propose turn lanes at each of those subdivision entrances. Now, ultimate build-out of Nation Road may be different than that, but as part of their traffic report, they've indicated turn lanes at each of those. So there's the north entrance, there's the second entrance by the pool, there's another entrance down by the commercial area as well.
okay.
So will those improvements be started before any construction is started in there, or do we know? Any
I think
idea?
as each phase comes through, they'll, when they come in through for phase one, those phase one plans will show what improvements are made at Nation Road at the time that final plat gets built.
Okay.
That makes sense. There's also a dedication of right-of-way that'll be 50 feet from center line also, so there'll be right-of-way dedicated for Nation Road.
And those 5 lots on the south side of Park Avenue having nothing to do with what we're doing tonight, that's just information?
No, it is, it's part of the second. So there'll be 2 motions tonight. One will be for the rezoning, and that's for that north area, the RP1, the villas area. And then a second motion for the preliminary plat. So it would update the preliminary plat to add the additional RP1 area lots, and then add the 5 lots on the south side of the.
To the entire plan.
Yeah, I didn't include the entire preliminary
Okay.
plat in your packet, because
Gotcha.
we just get a lot of sheets
Sure,
in
sure,
there. So I included just that corner and then the phase that shows kind of the north end of the subdivision, because other parts of this proposed subdivision don't change.
Gotcha.
And just to confirm, the lot sizes still exceed our minimums, it's just they're gonna be narrow and long.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. For straight R1 zoning, Kathy, the minimum width, there's 3 parameters. There's width, as you know, there's depth, and then there's square footage. So we needed these to be 50, which is more customary for the villa type of house. But then they got deeper, so actually the square footage is more than your minimum. The depth is more than your minimum, but we are 5 foot more narrow. That's
But
why the P.
This is more like a villa thing. This is not, I know it's single family, but you're talking more like what's it, 1933, sort of those.
19 to 33.
I think you mean 70 feet, not 50 feet.
Did I say 50?
You said
You
50.
did 50.
70.
Let's go with 70. Thank you for that correction.
More like,
It would be more like Falcon Hill Villas. So if
Okay.
you remember that one? Hedrick
Yeah.
came through.
yeah,
It looks like a regular single-family house on
they
a
just have a little
single-family
bit
lot.
smaller.
Just a
Just
little
bit
narrow.
narrower.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah.
it'd be a maintenance-free, so the yard areas are maintained. I think probably snow, they'll do driveways and things like that. Won't be like the Greenfield villas where they have, where they're set real close together
Okay.
and narrow.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the correction, not 50 feet.
Scared me for a second.
Okay. We should have got more lots in there.
We saw what you did there. You said it.
Any further board comments? Entertain a motion?
Well,
First was
We got 2 of
that.
them.
So for the
Right.
first portion, good catch.
I
that would
make a
be-
motion to approve the rezoning of the RP1 with staff recommendations.
Okay. I got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. So we'll roll into the second portion, David, the Phase 1 preliminary plat amendment. Need more Staff comments to add to that?
Yeah, I kind of gave my comments already. I just kind of group them together so I can do that one time
Okay.
and not do two different times.
And that's also public hearing?
No.
Not on this, just, okay. Okay. Any staff comments on the reason, or the plat amendment? Yeah, nothing. Okay. All right, entertain a motion for that one as well.
Make a motion to approve the preliminary plat
Okay,
amendment with staff recommendations.
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, that also carries. Move on to, what's the next item here? Innovation Lot 31, site plan reapproval, David?
Yes. Back in April of 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved a site plan for a 12,600 square foot building on Lot 31 of Innovation, which would be the southeast corner of Sandbar Drive and Innovation Drive. Site plan approvals are good for 1 year before they expire if we don't get a building permit by that time. They did not get a building permit into us quick enough. They're working on that at this point in time, I believe. So we're here today to request reapproval. Staff can actually approve up to a 6-month extension, but they didn't get a request to me in time, and so we just rescheduled that for hearing today before you guys. It's not a public hearing, it's a site plan, so a simple motion and a vote is acceptable. And staff recommends approval. I listed staff comments. I won't read them all out, but they're the same as the last time. It's just basically a reapproval.
No changes?
No changes. If you remember, that layout there was a driveway off of Sandbar Drive, driveway off of Innovation Drive. They had a loop around the building. So the front had a parking area, and they could split that up into up to 7 tenant spaces, or down to, they could have one tenant take up the whole building if they had somebody. So it's kind of flexible in that manner. There are overhead doors on the back so people can pull in a vehicle and do some storage inside the building.
No changes at all from last year.
Right.
Any comments from the board on this one? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to reapprove Innovation Lot 31.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries as well. All right, we're up to item C, new business, Couchman Industrial Park Lot 13, site plan reapproval as well.
And this one was a ditto of the last project that was approved in June of 2022. So if you take that site plan, do a quarter turn and move it 1 block to the north at the northwest corner of Sandbar Drive and Couchman Drive. Get the same thing there, and the same thing happened. They've expired. The sunset clause kicks in because it was over a year ago. I think they're working on that project as well. So I thought we'll seek reapproval, P&Z at the same time as the one in Innovation Drive. Staff recommendation is a recommendation for approval with the same conditions as the last time, and those are listed in the memo in your board packet.
Nothing changed.
No changes.
I was not here. Was there any objectives or objections at that point? I was not at that meeting.
The only discussion I remember about it was the railing, because you're gonna have some spots that were higher.
Yeah, there was a wall. Yep, there was a wall on each of those. And once you get over a certain height,
That
there's
should,
guardrail is
we
required.
went through all that
No issues.
back
All
then,
right.
and that's all still the same, so.
All right, with no comments, entertain a motion for this.
Motion to reapprove the Couchman Industrial Park Lot 13 site plan.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that one also carries.
Thank you.
Up to item D under new business, discussion of the solar energy system, solar panel requirements. David.
Sure. So there's no vote really to be taken tonight, just discussion, maybe submit some ideas to staff, or soliciting some comments from you. So the city passed some solar requirements for panels that are located either on a roof, on a house, or a yard, freestanding in a yard. We require on a roof that solar panels be flush with the roof, so they match the same pitch. The building code has some requirements for providing a route for fire personnel to get on the roof and still maneuver around the roof in case of an electrical issue or a fire issue. So there's some building code standards related to that. We allow panels on any side of the house, so front, back, or side, it doesn't matter. On the freestanding, we require that they be located in a backyard, not a front yard, and that they meet setbacks as if they were an accessory building like a shed or any other thing that you might have in your yard. We're pretty similar to other communities for roof and for the freestanding units. There was a state law that changed related to homeowners associations. So I think passed last year, and it went into effect earlier this year in January, that said that homeowners associations can't prohibit solar panels, and they can't put requirements that might affect the efficiency or the cost of panels. And that was strictly HOA, is not for cities or anything. After that, though, we've been asked by the board to review our current standard and see if any changes should be proposed. So we're looking for comments from you guys related to that. If there are, we can work up some code language and bring it back at a later time. So there's no need for, there's going to be no vote today, just looking for comments and see what the board, Planning and Zoning Commission thinks.
Have we had anyone come to us and say, I wanted to get my solar panels installed this way, and because we can't, because of code, now I can't get as much power as I want from my solar?
We have not had that, not based on what we have in play right now. We've issued, well, I kind of comment, we've issued 17 permits since the beginning of 2022. If we add a few more years, we add probably 5 or 6 over the previous 5 or 6 years on top of that, I think. More recently, we've gotten more of them proposed. We have one that is freestanding, and it's located down at 5th and Prospect in a backyard. Aside from that, they're all rooftop. And part of that, on the rooftops, so you'll get your conduit up the side of the house. We require that those be painted so that they're a little bit less visible. You're on top of the roof, there's really not a glare issue on those because they're up above, and because it's flush, it also kind of serves to try and, well, one, the angle's still pretty good for the sun, but requiring that they're flush, they're a little bit less visible on the roof. Not a whole lot because they stick out about a foot or so, but we don't have them where they stand up too much like a fin or anything like that.
Let me ask a question here. I've got a little experience with this. So are you telling me that the state law says you can put these panels on any 4 sides of your roof and there ain't a damn thing anybody can do about it?
The state, well, are you talking about the law that changed?
Yeah, whatever is forcing homeowners association basically to be worth nothing in this, right?
Well, no, it doesn't say they can't. Well, it says a homeowners association, there's a copy of it in here. A homeowners association may adopt reasonable rules subject to any applicable statutes or ordinances regarding the placement of solar panels or solar collectors to the extent that those rules do not prevent the installation of the device, impair the functioning of the device, restrict the use of the device, or adversely affect the cost or efficiency of the device.
Okay, so there you go, right there at the end. That means that they're gonna put it on the west or south side, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Because if you can't put it on the west or south, it's not gonna be near as efficient.
Right.
And that might be,
So
seems like,
basically,
yeah, it seems like maybe there are homeowners associations that were passing rules that effectively kept
absolutely.
people from putting up solar
Sure.
panels.
well, why do you want that? I mean, let's go back and talk about chicken coops again. I mean, why do you want to see solar panels on everybody's roof as you drive down the street? I don't.
But on the flip side of it, if my house faces the south, why should I be penalized to not be able to put
Well,
solar
first of
panels on the
all,
front?
if you really want to talk about the numbers, and I know what the numbers are on solar panels, it just depends on, there isn't anybody here on this board, I think, maybe Paula, that could put them on and they would pay out in your lifetime. It just won't happen. I have it on 2 businesses. You can't see it on either one. I mean, I made it that way because I didn't want anybody seeing them. But the only way I made it pay is called depreciation. And Uncle Sam lets me depreciate those panels. And then, after depreciation, then now they're gonna save me money because they let me write that off, basically. But on your home, those panels, if they come from China, they're only good for 10 years, and the efficiency starts going down day one. The good US panels are 20-year panels, but you still, by the time you get to 10 or 12 years, you're down to 90 or in the 80s efficiencies. And the payout, even if Uncle Sam is throwing in a wad of money, isn't there. I've looked at it on my house, on my old house, on Colony, house at the lake. It just doesn't work. So if somebody can show me how it works, I would love to see that. Because I'm all for the technology, but I'm all against putting panels on the streets of Kearney where you can see them.
Yeah, I don't feel like it makes, I mean, we have several in our neighborhood, and I can see them because they're on the south and west facing towards the street, and they don't bother me at all. They kind of blend with the roof.
If you're gonna put Tesla's panels or whatever, they look like shingles, kind of.
I mean, they're very obviously solar panels, but
That
unlike
is-
the chicken coop, which comes with smells and potentially chickens in my yard, or people, not,
You will regret letting this happen if you put those solar panels on everybody's house. I mean, this will look like, I don't know, future hell. I mean, it's something out of, I'm trying to think of a sci-fi film that I could relate it to, but I mean, that's what it's, I mean, there's just, I mean, we spend a lot of money on our houses, making them look nice, and then you slap those solar panels on the front.
Do we know that solar panel farm that we did for Black Clay, it's been, 8 years ago that we approved that?
Maybe longer than that.
I don't know. Do we have any statistics whether or not those
I
are
don't know.
supplying any power? I've heard the same thing.
But here's the deal, we shouldn't be in the business of telling people what they want or what they don't want. It's whether we, as a city, want to allow them. We shouldn't be debating whether they're good or bad, because
No,
that's everybody
that's
else's,
true.
that's everybody else's decision. That's
Yeah.
your own decision. But we should be talking about whether we want to allow those kinds of things aesthetically in the community. I think that solar and wind and all of those other technologies are going to be important at some point. But I don't know that right now, today, that allowing panels on street-facing rooftops is in the best interest of the community. That one I struggle with a little bit, because I don't, you know, you do notice them, at least I do.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's not necessarily a
They're
bad
already
thing.
allowed though, so the real
Right-
question
right
is,
now-
do we want to add an additional thing to
Make it more
modify
restrictive.
what we already allow?
Yeah.
And I, you know, if we say, no, you can't put them on the front of your house, is that gonna open the city up to some litigation because that guy's house faces south on the street? And his other side of his house, you know, it's straight up and down, he can't put panels. He doesn't have the space in the small backyard to put in the necessary panels. If we restrict that at some point, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen, but it could potentially happen. Because we don't restrict the guy right across the street from him for putting panels on the back of his house. It's just, if we restrict people to not allow anything on the front, and if you look at those 8 other cities that you got, none of them restrict it, are we opening ourselves up to litigation? And I'm gonna say that we probably will at some point.
Well, I don't know who the genius was that wrote that law in Jefferson City. Probably a solar supplier.
Oh, it
Sure.
was
Sure.
most definitely pushed through for that.
Lobbyists will.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And taking it away from, I mean, let's face it, a lot of these homeowners association really don't have a lot of teeth in Kearney, and especially after the developer has it, they do, because they just say, no, you're not going to do it. But once the developer's gone and all the subdivision's built out, if nobody steps up to take the reins, then you just pretty much do whatever you want to. I've already seen it happen, you know, in our old neighborhood. And I'm just, it's a bad idea. But if you guys have to do whatever the law says, I guess, but I sure don't want to live in a neighborhood with solar panels on the front.
I didn't see anything about our current zoning or whatever. It seemed good to me. It seemed like it allowed people to have what they needed. And we haven't heard that people aren't able to do. So I didn't see anything that suggests we change what we're currently.
Yeah, I tried to look at our panels, and it looked to me like, I think, of the permits we issued, I counted, I think it was like 10 on the more of the back side and 6 on the front side. So it's not split 50-50, but there are some that have them on I would call it a front-facing elevation.
You know, that's the whole point of having a planning and zoning board, is to keep your city looking good, in my opinion. So if you're going to put solar panels on the front of everybody's house, let's just throw the whole thing up and let's get the chain link fence in everybody's front yard and allow 4 or 5 dogs to run around in there. I mean, if you're going to rat it all up, well, let's rat it up.
Well, it's already allowed though, so you suggesting we need to go backwards and say it can't happen anymore?
Well, I'm just saying, you're going to whatever neighborhood gets the solar panels on the front is going to start looking ratty. It just will.
I mean, unless there's an HOA right now saying you can't have it, where they are happening in Kearney and our zoning allows it.
And that's what I just said earlier, is that once the subdivision's built out and nobody steps up to enforce the HOA, then you don't have any teeth. But that's why the city should be not allowing things like that to happen.
That's what I'm saying. So would you, or what you're recommending is we change the code to disallow it? Because right now, as the city,
If we don't allow them on the front of the house now, is that correct?
No, we do.
We do.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't-
Well, then
Our
absolutely.
code doesn't say that you cannot put it on front face.
That's not what I remembered reading on this last month. I remembered reading that they could be in the backyard if they were hidden.
That would be a freestanding, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that they could be on the house as long as they were not seen from the street.
I don't think it really says that. It
I
requires they
paraphrased that, but-
be flush. Yeah, they gotta be flush.
Okay, well, I'm a no on that. You know, can't tell.
It's not a vote, it's a, do we want to ask the city to write up a new plan that disallows?
And if anybody wants to help, if anybody that wants solar panels wants me to help figure the return on investment with them, I'll be glad to do the numbers with them. I've done a lot of them. And every time I've told them I'm not passing these solar panels down to my kids. I don't want them to work while I'm alive.
I'm okay with it written as it is right now, personally. It's where I fall. But
I am too, until the guy across the street puts them in.
Yeah, that's my concern. What happens to property values if you're looking at it? There's, aesthetically, will your house have a struggle to sell? I don't know.
would
Or if you
would
have
it
it.
impact you buying a house if the house across the street from you had them on their roof and you could see them?
If it's an unaesthetically looking house, yes, it would impact my decision to buy that home.
If the rest of the
100%.
house looked gorgeous, but there were solar panels flush on the roof, would it impact your decision?
It might, depends.
I mean,
It
that's
depends.
the question about whether or not it impacts your,
It goes back to the same thing Chaska said about the chicken coops, you know? It's just going to drive the value down of the house and all the houses in that neighborhood, because nobody's going to want to pay top dollar for a house that has attachments on the front. Just like they wouldn't if there was a chicken coop in the backyard or something.
Chain link fence.
I just won't. So, what else do we need to say about this? This is just discussion, right?
Yeah, just discussion.
Data
Yes.
gathering.
Okay.
Staff's just looking for some direction on whether or not we should propose some changes or leave the status quo.
But you said there's no way for us to actually gather data whether or not they're functioning the way it was promised when homeowners purchased this product, whether they're working for them. It doesn't.
I mean, does it matter? I mean,
No.
there's
Doesn't.
people that buy a lot of stupid things.
True statement. That's a true statement.
And we don't regulate
That's a
it.
true statement.
That's right.
you're probably no exceptions to that either. You're probably all done.
True statement.
It might be interesting to know what real estate agents say about if that drives down the value of housing. Because if it does, then I think then there's something that to be said about maybe we do restrict that. And personally, I'm not going to put solar panels on my roof because my roof is a 30-year roof. The panels are 20-year panels. Then you have to pull out all down to replace your roof, or whatever. It just, the numbers don't work out. And I have been, a former employee of mine put a solar panel array on their roof downtown Kansas City, and it never, and now even in the heart of summer, it never provided more than 20% of the electricity for the building. So at this point, the technology is not there for me personally, but again, I'm not in the business of telling people if they want those things on their roof, then they should be able to do it. I just, again, aesthetically, do we want them on the front or not? And so is there any way to find out
I
from?
can try and poll some realtors and see if there's any information on that. Follow back up with you guys.
Can you look into the chicken coop and price value while you're polling them, because that's,
I wrote the same thing, do chickens next door affect the sales price of the house too, so.
yeah, because we're gonna eventually have to re-vote on that, so. Might as well get all the data.
Well, I think Kent made a very good point about what looks good. It's our response to a certain point. It's our responsibility to make sure that we don't allow things that are going to hurt
Yeah.
the view of the city. We did that just not too long ago with a concrete plant on 92 Highway out by Arby's, because we didn't like the way it looked when you came into town with the height of the buildings and all that. So, you know, and
Good statement.
and you're right about the chickens. I've got a porch that's on the, got a walkout basement, and I have a porch above it. So I've looked down at everything. I've got a house right across the street that is a ranch. It's a long house with a garage on the end, and no trees in the front, and it faces the south. Well, that whole thing could become a, whatever they're made of.
Mhm.
And I personally think that would affect the value of my home. And also, I really just don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
I'm good.
think you have enough, okay. Last item,
Now, and I'll pull some realtor, any info on that.
sure. Next is the building permit data.
Standard report, things are slow, housing wise.
sure looks like it.
I do want to announce that Chuck is not here today. He resigned from the Planning and Zoning Commission this past week. Annette is scheduled to retire in December, and I think he's trying to retire too, and so he's freeing himself up a little bit.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have somebody in mind for the mayor?
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
All right, there's nothing else. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion
Good night,
carries.
everybody.
We'll see you next.